Split Fiction is a co-op only action-adventure game developed by Hazelight Studios, released in 2025. I enjoyed their previous game, It Takes Two, and when my friend bought the game and wanted to play it with me, I thought, hey, why not? The cool thing is only one person has to buy the game, the other person can play it with them in a free version. This is great and should be the standard for all co-op only games, not that there's many. I'm not going to spoil anything as it's still quite a new release. You play as Zoe, a fantasy writer, and Mio, a sci-fi writer, who are going to be published at a company called Ryder. In order to get published, they must first get plugged into a machine that brings their stories to life in a virtual world, but Mio accidentally goes into Zoe's pod, causing the world to combine. This means they can't get out of the machine safely. Early on, it's revealed that Ryder is using the machine to steal the writer's ideas for their own, so Zoe and Mio have to work together and get through each other's stories and find glitches if they want to get out of the machine and stop Ryder. I also feel like Ryder would have just sued them for breaking the machine after they get out, but hey, I'm overthinking it. The story is okay, not as good as It Takes Two, which was more emotional and relatable, being about a failing relationship and how a child is taking it. It also has more compelling characters. Split Fiction takes a while for the plot to get interesting. I didn't really gravitate towards the two protagonists until late in the game, where their backstory started getting revealed. Zoe seems overly happy at the beginning and Mio is overly negative. Their relationship plays out like a typical buddy cop film. They don't like each other in the beginning with their opposite personalities. Mio doesn't like fantasy and Zoe doesn't like sci-fi, but by the end, after some bonding, they become friends. It's good, nothing you haven't seen before. I think It Takes Two had a more compelling relationship. You don't really meet that many characters on the journey, so you're sort of stuck with the two of them. The villain is a bit one note, he just goes on about wanting to fix his machine so he can make money, just not a lot of depth to him. The voice acting is fine, no one does a bad job, there's just no stands out for me besides the dancing monkey. So I'm disappointed the story isn't as good as the previous game, but is the gameplay disappointing? No, it's not. Split Fiction is mostly a platform where you spend most of your time jumping, dashing and using your grapple hook to get around the areas. There is a heavy emphasis on co-op. The screen will mostly always be in split screen so you can see what your partner is doing. The teamwork mechanics feel intuitive and rely on communication similar to Portal 2. You will have to help each other out constantly. There's no point running ahead because you're going to need your partner to progress. The game is filled with loads of creative ways for you to work together and you never spend too long with one mechanic to get sick of it. In one level you can shapeshift, in another you have guns, and in another you ride dragons. During these levels each player will have their own abilities. So for example, Zoe's dragon can roll into a ball and break crystals, and Mio's dragon can spit acid and melt metal. You have to figure out how to use each ability to progress through the levels whilst working together. The last segment gets really creative with its mechanics and was a standout part. You can also find optional side stories during these levels. They are really hard to miss and they will give you a new mechanic to play with for a little bit. These are here for a bit of fun, like ones where you turn into a pig, ones where you can fly, and another where you're in a game show. The game is more challenging than It Takes Two, but it's still not that difficult. The premise lends itself to having a variety of levels without feeling forced. You will swap between a fantasy world and a sci-fi world every so often. This can be a cyberpunk inspired city and an extra in a castle that's been frozen over. I think that the environments are quite memorable and that the different worlds feel distinct from one another. Each level looks colourful and vibrant and has some neat art direction. My only complaint is that the worlds feel generic, like the fantasy village is your typical fantasy village and a sci-fi factory is a typical sci-fi factory. The music changed depending on what world you're in to suit it, but there wasn't any standout tracks for me. It's pretty flawless bug-wise. I don't think I had any glitches whilst playing, which is rare these days. I would say this game is probably a perfect length. It isn't too long. It took me about 11 hours to beat. I was engaged enough the whole time. I feel like if it went on any long, it would have started to drag. There's no reason to really replay this unless you want to play as the other character. Maybe some collectibles would have been nice, as there's no real reason to go exploring. So overall, I like this game. I didn't love it. If you like It Takes Two, you're probably going to like this. The story doesn't hit as hard for me, but it's still alright. The gameplay is where it really shines. Just a ton of creativity on display, and there's so much variety I didn't find myself getting bored. So time to rank it. My gut is telling me number 5. I enjoyed Onimusha and Stellar Blade, but I think I was more entertained by Split Fiction that had a lot of variety in the gameplay and locations. But I don't think it did anything too unique gameplay wise to stand out like Death Stranding, which had a more engaging story and characters to me even though I didn't fully understand it. So yeah, number 5 for me. I bet this is going to be some people's game of the year like It Takes Two was. Maybe if it had a better story it would have been for me too. Well, that's it for me. I'm now going to go write a book or something.